All right, ready to unlock some cosmic secrets. We're taking a deep dive into Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time.
It's a book that's both challenging and inspiring, taking us on this wild ride through the evolution of how we understand the universe.
Yeah, Hawking doesn't dumb it down, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love is how he starts with those early astronomers. Like, imagine being Aristotle, right? Just by watching eclipses, he figures out the Earth is round.
Incredible, isn't it? Talk about the power of observation. But as we learn more, naturally, our models of the universe had to change too.
Right, like Copernicus comes along and says, hold on, maybe the Earth isn't the center of everything. It must have blown people's minds back then.
It really did shake things up. And then you've got Newton bringing in gravity to explain how it all works.
Which brings us to maybe the biggest aha moment in the book, that shift from Newtonian gravity to Einstein's relativity. I'm not going to lie, that's where I always felt like I needed to go back to school to keep up.
Well, the key is that Einstein kind of flipped our understanding of gravity on its head.
In what way?
So instead of it being this force pulling things together, he describes it as this curvature in the fabric of space-time.
Okay, hold on. Space-time. So it's not just space, it's space and time together.
Exactly. And that curvature, that's what gravity is. It's caused by mass and energy, and it dictates how everything moves through the universe.
Okay, so it's not just that. Like, the Earth is moving through space, but space and time themselves are being warped by these massive objects. I remember Hawking uses that analogy of an airplane flying over hills.
Right. The airplane's following a straight path, but its shadow on the ground, that looks curved because of the hills below, right? So it's kind of like that. In this case, it's the fabric of space-time itself that's doing the curving. And massive objects like stars and planets, they're like the hills that influence the movement of everything around them.
Okay, so that's how gravity works, according to Einstein. But what does that actually mean for us? Like, how does it affect how the universe works on a grand scale?
Well, for one thing, it means gravity isn't this mysterious force acting at a distance. It's a fundamental property of space-time itself. And this warping of space-time, it has some pretty mind-blowing consequences. It affects the passage of time.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it affects the path of light, even the fate of stars.
That's where we get to black holes, right?
Exactly.
Those regions of space-time where gravity is so intense, so strong, that nothing, not even light, can escape. But if nothing can escape, how do we even know they exist?
That's a great question, and you're right. We can't observe black holes directly because they don't emit light. But what we can do is detect their presence through their incredible gravitational effects on objects around them. Hawking actually describes this binary star system, Cygnus X1, where one star is visible but the other, while the other's invisible.
Okay.
And much denser.
And that's our black hole.
You got it. And it's whipping the visible star around like it's nothing. It's the telltale sign of a black hole, you see.
Wow. So we see these effects in other star systems, too.
Exactly. And even at the centers of galaxies, which suggests that black holes are way more common than we initially thought.
These invisible behemoths just lurking out there, warping space and time. It's kind of terrifying, actually.
It is pretty wild to think about.
Black holes always sounded so final to me, like these cosmic vacuum cleaners just sucking up everything in their path. But one of the most surprising things Hawking reveals is that black holes might not be completely black after all.
You're talking about Hawking radiation, right? That's where his own groundbreaking research comes in.
Yeah, by combining general relativity with quantum mechanics, which is a whole other can of worms.
Absolutely.
He proposed that black holes can actually emit a type of thermal radiation.
It really shook the foundations of physics.
Wait, so even though nothing can escape a black hole's gravity, they still radiate energy? How does that even work?
It's pretty complex, but essentially, it has to do with the way quantum fluctuations behave at the very edge of a black hole, at a point we call the event horizon.
Okay.
And these fluctuations, they can create pairs of particles, and sometimes one particle escapes as radiation while the other falls into the black hole.
So black holes are slowly evaporating over time, radiating away their energy.
Yeah.
That completely changes how I always pictured them. This is why I love this book. It constantly challenges our assumptions.
Absolutely. Hawking never shies away from tackling these big questions, even if the answers lead to even more profound mysteries. And speaking of big questions, how about we talk about how the universe itself began? You know, the Big Bang. Yeah, the Big Bang. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? To think about the universe bursting forth from this incredibly hot, dense state billions of years ago.
It's like, where did all this come from? And it's been expanding and cooling ever since, right?
That's right. And it's amazing how scientists piece this story together, like from clues, right?
Yeah.
Like this cosmic microwave background radiation that Hawking talks about.
Which he describes as this faint afterglow of that initial explosion.
Exactly. Can you imagine? Like finding a fingerprint
Yeah.
from the universe's earliest moments
That's incredible.
is huge, right? It really confirmed the Big Bang model for a lot of people.
Hey, but I mean, every answer in this book just seems to lead to more questions, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, if the Big Bang was the beginning, what came before it?
Right.
And what caused it in the first place?
Well, you see, you've hit on the questions that keep physicists up at night, those really big ones.
Yeah.
Hawking, he explores some pretty mind-bending possibilities, like the idea that the universe might be self-contained,
Okay.
that it has no beginning or end in the way that we traditionally think of them.
That's where that whole no boundary proposal comes in, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I remember reading that part and just thinking, okay, my brain officially hurts now.
It's a tough one to wrap your head around, for sure.
It is.
Because it's not like you can just picture it, right?
Right.
But imagine the surface of a sphere.
Okay.
So it's finite, but it doesn't have any edges, right?
Right.
No starting or ending point.
I'm with you.
Hawking's suggesting that space-time itself might be structured kind of like that,
Whoa.
existing in a way that our three-dimensional brains, we can't really grasp it.
So if the universe has no boundaries, does that mean that time itself has no beginning or end?
Well,
That's a pretty profound thought.
it really is. It challenges our everyday understanding of time, for sure. But that's the beauty of this book, isn't it? It forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge, to consider possibilities that almost seem like they're straight out of science fiction.
It definitely stretches your brain power, that's for sure. But even with all these cosmic mysteries that we've been talking about,
Right.
Hawking also brings it back down to Earth, so to speak.
Okay.
And he starts talking about some of the more tangible implications of our current understanding of physics, like wormholes and time travel.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't dreamed of hopping in a time machine at some point, right?
It's a classic. And, according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, which we've been talking about, time travel into the future, it's definitely possible, at least in theory.
Wait, really? How so?
Okay, so remember how we were talking about warped space-time?
Yeah.
The stronger the gravity,
Okay.
the slower time runs relative to someone experiencing weaker gravity.
Okay, so if I could hang out near a black hole for a while, not get too close, obviously.
Right.
I could theoretically age slower than people back on Earth.
Exactly. And then, when you return to Earth, you might find that years, decades, even centuries have passed, depending on, how close you got to that black hole and how long you stayed there.
So time travel to the future is theoretically possible. But what about going back in time? That's where things get really complicated, right?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The equations of general relativity, they do allow for the possibility of what we call closed time-like curves. Essentially, they're paths through space-time that could loop back on themselves.
So you're saying there's a chance I could go back and meet my great-great-grandparents?
Now, hold on. While these closed time-like curves could, in theory, allow for journeys into the past, there are some major obstacles to overcome.
Okay.
Hawking, he acknowledges this, and he points out that it's not at all clear if time travel to the past is actually achievable, even if the math allows for it.
Okay, so time travel to the future, maybe, just maybe. Time travel to the past, a whole lot trickier, it sounds like. But why is it so complicated? I mean, it can't just be because Doc Brown never quite got that DeLorean working.
Right. You're right. It's not really about building a time machine so much as it is about whether the universe itself would allow such a thing. And Hawking, he points out some pretty compelling reasons why going back in time might be fundamentally impossible, even if we could somehow figure out the how-to part.
You're talking about paradoxes, right? Like in Back to the Future, where Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly, he almost accidentally prevents his own parents from even meeting.
Exactly. That's the classic grandfather paradox.
Yes.
If you could travel back and change the past, you could create these logical contradictions that would just unravel everything we know about reality.
So if I went back in time and accidentally stepped on a butterfly,
Right.
could I create some kind of ripple effect that would change the entire course of history?
That's the butterfly effect in a nutshell, yeah. This idea that even small changes in the past could have huge, unpredictable consequences down the line.
No.
which is exactly why time travel to the past is so messy.
Right.
It throws causality itself into total chaos.
So what's the verdict? Is time travel to the past just a fun thought experiment, or could it actually be possible?
Well, Hawking explores this very question, and he suggests that maybe, just maybe, the laws of physics themselves might actually prevent those paradoxes from ever happening.
Oh, okay.
Like there's some sort of cosmic chronology protection built in,
Okay.
a set of rules that keep the past from being altered, even if we figure out how to travel back in time.
So even if we could build a time machine, the universe itself might just say, nope, not going to happen, which I guess is kind of reassuring in a way.
It does make you think.
It really does. But even if we can't just zip back and see dinosaurs roaming around, this deep dive into a brief history of time has been amazing. What's the biggest takeaway you hope our listener is left pondering?
For me, it's the awe-inspiring scale of it all. Hawking takes us on this incredible journey, from the smallest particles to the largest structures in the universe, and he shows how everything is connected through these fundamental laws of physics.
Yeah.
It's humbling and exhilarating at the same time, isn't it?
It really puts things into perspective, that's for sure. We're all just tiny specks in this vast ancient universe governed by forces we're only just beginning to understand.
Well said.
To our listener out there, keep looking up at those stars, keep asking those big questions, and never stop exploring the wonders of the cosmos. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into a brief history of time.